This is Rob with AV Dreamer. Today we're going to take a look at a pre-wire of this house. And first off, I apologize if the microphone's not the best or you hear some wind. I don't have my normal camera equipment with me today, but I just want to give you a few pro tips on doing a pre-wire if you are going to do this yourself. And we're going to just walk up here. And it sounds like there's a bird stuck in this house somewhere. I hear tweeting going on, so if you hear tweeting, that's why. So this particular client has a dedicated media room that we just finished up the pre-wire, and I'll just give you a few tips here. So we have some in-wall pre-construction brackets in here, and if you are running your speaker wire, it's important to note that when the sheetrockers come in, you got to make sure that you take preventative steps to make sure you don't get any speaker wires pinched in the drywall, because they're here to do a job and do it as quickly as possible. So you want to make sure you use some zip ties. Have these handy little places to zip tie your speaker wire, and then any excess you want to go ahead and zip tie. Now, the client will insulate this wall, but the nice thing about these pre-construction brackets is that when the sheetrockers come in, they will cut the holes for you. So when you come back to install your speakers later, the holes are already there. They're nicely cut out. I mean, these have nice little ridges on them, which is about the depth of the sheetrock. So the only exposed area will be along this inside piece right here. So client does have on-wall speakers for the right and left surrounds. The ones we just looked at were the surround back speakers. And again, I'm making it as easy as possible for the sheetrockers, because through past experience, I've had sheetrockers, I've had the cable in the wrong place. They just pinched the sheetrock right onto the cable, and it was a nightmare to have to try to fix that. So, but for the right and left speakers, they are going to be on wall. That's why we have these low voltage brackets, and you can pick these up at most hardware stores. I believe I have a vendor who has those. If you need any and you can't find them anywhere, hit me up and I can help you out. So, and then on the ceiling we have our 4 Dolby Atmos speaker locations. And just a quick tip for you, I always recommend coming in and doing this after the electricians, because again, the electricians have a job to do. They're doing it as quickly as possible. And if you pre-wire your house before they come in with all your Cat 6 speaker wire, coax cable, they're going to use the same holes that you use, and they're going to go right over your wire. And that's a no-no. You really want to be as far away from any electrical cabling as possible. So again, here we have the brackets. And just a pro tip for you here, the other advantage of coming in after the electricians is that they put up 4 cans in this room, and instead of me having to measure from the wall and to the front to get all 4 of these brackets lined up, it's real easy just to measure off the pre-existing can, because a lot of these guys use lasers to line up their cans, and so they should be accurately spaced in the correct position. So if you measure off this can, for example, I don't remember exactly what the measure is, around 6 inches from, and you just choose any old spot on the can, as long as that little bracket to the left there is what I used, and then I went to the edge of the bracket. That was about 6 inches. So if you measure 6 inches on this side, they should be lined up. And then also you have these little lines that are on the bracket as well. And I just kind of lined it up with a spot on the insulin light can with the bracket, and then you can also use that line on the 2x4 to make sure that both your speakers are in line with each other, front and back. And again, there's another can that I took another measurement off of, and then it matches this can over here. So, and again, you want to zip tie your cables You want to make sure that just make it as easy as possible for the drywallers. And again, they will conveniently cut the holes for you, so you do not have to worry about ever having to figure out where you put the wires and stuff, and which is a major pain in the butt. So as far as the rest of the room goes, the client did want a piece of conduit here, so I installed that. So we can easily run an HDMI cable up. And then of course there's power that if you're working with a contractor electrician, make sure that you tell them you want power behind the television. So, because if you don't, that becomes a problem. So and that conduit is huge. I mean, you can't buy that at Home Depot anywhere. I get that through a private vendor. It is rather pricey, but is huge. So you can put tons of cables in there if necessary. And then over here, we have the entire room comes out of 2 low voltage wall plate brackets. I have one bracket up that's higher up, that's for all the speaker wire. The bracket down low has 2 Cat 6 and 1 coax cable. Now it's important to do this now, because you might think, well, I only need 1 Cat 5 wire or whatever. Well, history shows that you'll probably end up needing more than what you think. And a lot of this stuff is Wi-Fi, but the throughput on Wi-Fi generally isn't the best unless you have a really high-end router. It's always best to plug in your device directly if you can, and that's why we have 2 Cat 6 cable, actually, and there's a third one here in this wall. You can always use a switch, that's fine, but if you get a lot of devices that are running 4K and all that, new PS5 or whatever, your chances are you're going to get better performance if you have things hardwired. So one thing to take really special care of is when you are hardwiring, you want to avoid as much as possible dealings with electrical. Now, obviously we have some electrical here, but I have it as far away as I can get it. And inevitably you're going to be close. The rule of thumb is you can cross an electrical wire at 90 degrees, but never run parallel, because that 60 hertz interference, buzz in a speaker, data loss in a Cat 6 cable is definitely a possibility. So the other thing to note here is that I have grouped these cables in 2 groups, and I have zip tied everything. So again, making it, and I noticed that I got it up off the floor, and I have a couple of screws and zip ties. So when the sheetrockers come in here, if you leave all this stuff on the floor, guess what? It's gonna get trampled and squished and stepped on, because again, these guys, I hate to say it, but a lot of these guys just don't pay attention, or they may not even care, and you can end up with problems. So getting up off the floor, and then all they have to do is take those 2 screws out, and because they're gonna cut the holes for that low voltage right there and there, and they're gonna want it as easy as possible to get that cable through the holes on the sheetrock. So having it up off the floor, nice and neat and tidy when they come in here, especially when they start working above, because most likely they might put all the stuff up above first before they put on the side. I'm not sure. I'm not a sheetrocker, but I've had enough run-ins with them to know, roughly how they work. So then we have a location over here, and they're gonna put we're gonna put in a Samsung frame television. So we have the electrical there. Now, the new Samsung frames don't actually have the electrical on the television. They have a control box, which we are gonna put in a cabinet that is gonna be mounted here to the right of the fireplace. And this cabinet is gonna have a couple of holes in the side, and there we have the low voltage box and then the high voltage box for the electrical. And the way that I have set this up now, you also see conduit. The Samsung Frame TV has a single fiber optic cable and a little wire for power and video that we're gonna go through this conduit. Then we'll come out this box here, and then a thin little wire going to the TV, and it will power up the TV and send the video and audio to it. So, but another little trick here is you notice that I have all the cable not coming through the box. I have it zip tied, and then I have it loosely piled down here by the right side of the fireplace. So when the cabinet makers are finished, all I have to do is snip that zip tie, reach in there with my fingers, and pull it out. By doing this, you really make life a lot easier for the cabinet installers, and there's less chance that they're not going to get pissed off and cut all your cables. Trust me, I've had that done, and it is no fun.